We're joined now by Emily Boyle with the press review. And Emily, you're starting us off with reactions to those Russian strikes in Ukraine over the weekend.
Yeah, they were some of the biggest strikes since the start of the war. And The Guardian dedicates 2 pages of its paper to the story here today. It quotes Zelensky, who called the attacks deranged in a post on Telegram. And meanwhile, in the UK, Foreign Secretary Yvette Cooper said that, quotes, Russia's attack on Ukrainian civilians betrays its weakness. But if you have a look on this page here of the 2-page spread, it's taking a little look at Vladimir Putin, who apparently is, quotes, trying to keep up appearances despite losing the trust of some of his supporters. Now, in this article, The Guardian features a few interviews with some people in Vladimir Putin's orbit who suggest that the president has become increasingly isolated and surrounded by a disillusioned elite. One person interviewed in this article says, quote, there's a realization that utterly senseless, self-destructive decisions keep being made and that people who used to support the president no longer do. Now, this feeling is echoed in Fortune magazine, which has this article here on the topic, describes an increasingly alarmed elite. The article discusses the results of a research done by Sweden's military intelligence. It finds that while Russia claims its GDP grew by about 13% between 2020 and 2024, Sweden's analysis of nighttime luminosity suggests that the economy actually shrank by 8% during that period. Now, Sweden's intelligence chief explains that this would mean that Russia is overstating its purchasing power and that its military spending capacity is actually much weaker than it appears. Now, let's have a look at The Atlantic here. It says that Putin can no longer hide his catastrophe and that he's lost control of the narrative. The article says that the president has tried to encourage business as usual, but that this narrative is now completely unraveling.
And next, Emily, you go to Turkey, where police forces occupied the opposition party headquarters yesterday.
Yeah, let's start with the Turkish state media, English language news here with Daily Sabah. It has this article here today. Police officers evicted the headquarters of the main opposition party, the CHP. Now, this article claims that it was Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu, the former leader of the CHP, who requested the expulsion of his successor, Özgür Özel, after Özel was removed from office by a court ruling last Thursday. Now, this court decision was followed by the closure of one of the biggest universities, Bilgi University in Istanbul, on Friday. It was described by Libération. The university is described as the pro-European symbol of a free Turkey. Now, since then, Erdogan has announced that the university would reopen shortly. But according to Libé, these events are a continuation of President Erdogan's authoritarian turn. This is a feeling also shared by the Frankfurter Allgemeine here in this article, which says that all means are acceptable for Erdogan to hang on to power as he turns his country into a one-man autocracy.
And meanwhile, Emily, the controversial enhanced games took place over the weekend. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, the last events were taking place as we speak. Let's have a look first at The Economist. It has a long read about the competition. About 50 athletes are taking part, competing for around $25 million in prize money. And the competition is being held in a specially built arena and will feature musical appearances, a little like the Super Bowl, for instance, by the Killers. But the article says that all this spectacle really has one real aim, and that's to push the limits of what the public sees as acceptable use of performance-enhancing drugs. Now, the Enhanced company is hoping to tap into the $6.8 trillion industry of wellness supplements and life-extending products. So far, though, as RFI reports, the competition has been quite disappointing. They have not had as many breakthroughs as they were expecting. A few of the contestants have come close to some world records, but none of them have actually broken past those barriers, and it's been generally disappointing. But there is one athlete that is setting records and has a little bit to say about life expectancy. It is Harry Heisman. He's become the oldest person to perform a wing walk, as you can see there, attached to the top of the plane a few days ahead of his 99th birthday. Now, Apparently, he had to build his performance up because he was struggling to walk upstairs before the event, but with the help of his physio, he managed to make it up the step he needed to walk up to get to the top of this massive plane. Now, he did it for a children's cancer charity, has apparently raised around £3,000 so far, and is hoping to compete in the London Marathon next year.
And finally, Emily, the Cannes Film Festival came to a close yesterday, and the Palme d'Or went to quite an original film.
Yes, an original film, apparently, according to the Telegraph, one of the most divisive films at this year's festival. It is Romanian director Cristian Mungiu's second Palme d'Or after his film 4 months, 3 weeks and 2 days. But there's another film story that caught my eye that I would like to bring your attention to here in The Guardian. Now, a recent study found that films are more likely to star an actor called Chris or a talking animal than a woman over 60. Now, this is a anti-ageism campaign that led this research alongside figures like Emma Thompson, for instance. It studied the 100 highest performing films released in the UK in 2023, 2024 and 2025, and found that while 5 featured an older woman, around 20 featured animals who are able to talk. So still a long way to go for Hollywood.
That's certainly true and rather sobering as well. Thank you very much for that, Emily Boyle. And that's all we have time for now. But do stay with us for more news coming up on France 24.